Hi, and welcome to A Place Called Through, broadcasting from WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network. I'm your host, Patricia Wade Goings, and again, we're broadcasting from WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network, where we share our story of mission of hope, our mission of hope to encourage, inspire, and to inform people of things that are happening globally as we share our stories with real people sharing their real life challenging stories, having great impact upon us all. And today we're here from Miss Christina Stanton, who survived COVID 19. We're going to learn about the effects of COVID 19 as it affects the family and those closest to you. But guess what? It's all done through those charitable donations that you, our listeners, and our viewers make to WYTV7.org, a place called through. Again, I am your host, and I welcome to A Place Called Through, Miss Christina Stanton. Welcome to A Place Called Through.
Hi everyone.
We are so honored that you are here, and we're just so thankful that you are a survivor of COVID 19. We know that it has been quite a horrendous and also a challenging process because coronavirus has not gone away, but we're thankful today that there is a method in place now. People are able to get treated for it now, even though there's still so much mystery to COVID 19. Things are being discovered every day. And so we're just thankful that you're here today to share your story about being a survivor, that you've escaped this horrendous disease that has now it's just plagued this whole nation. We're all being impacted one way or another. So we want you to tell our listeners and our viewers your story of empowerment about being a survivor of COVID 19. So when you first realized, how did you realize that you had COVID 19?
So my husband and I, we live in New York City, and we were actually hosting my nieces up from Tampa, Florida for their spring break, right when the disease hit New York City in mid-March. And so literally we fly our nieces up and everything shut down all around us. And I was like, oh my goodness, we fly them up. There's nothing to do. Things are becoming very scary. They were scared. There was a very tense atmosphere in New York City. I said, we need to get them home. This is not the time to be celebrating spring break up in New York City with all this happening. So we changed their flights to fly them home. But turns out I couldn't get them the direct flight home as I had gotten them to New York. And I said, you know what, Brian, let's take them back home to Tampa together. And let's spend their spring break with them in their home since nothing's happening up here. And then we'll just, stay there for a couple of weeks and then we'll come back to New York City and everything will be fine, right? So we get on the plane and we get to Tampa. I immediately got sick. And we actually do believe that we probably got the virus on the flight down to Tampa, right? We're not sure. I guess we'll never know, right? But that's what we kind of what we've all come up with when we kind of backtracked what we had done on the days prior. So we get down to Tampa and I start feeling really bad right away. And then one by one, everybody else started feeling bad, including my brother-in-law, because we were now at his home. I was actually put in the hospital only a few days after I started feeling poorly. And it was mainly because I couldn't stand up without fainting. So I took that as, oh my goodness, this has to be a problem with breathing. I hear if you have we hadn't tested for COVID or anything like that, but I was hearing in TV reports, hey, if you're having trouble breathing, you might have the virus, go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital. So it turns out what was making me faint is my blood pressure was so low, I literally couldn't stand up. But at the same time, when they were discovering that about my blood pressure, they gave me a COVID test, which I tested positive. So I was in the hospital for a few days then. I got back to my brother-in-law's and they told me, well, there's nothing more we can do for you at the hospital. We've kind of patched you up and do the best you can at home at your brother-in-law's. As soon as I got back to my brother-in-law, I went through what I call a battle with the virus, where I believe it was trying to kill me, actively trying to kill me.
Wow.
And I barely survived one night. And I went right on back to the hospital pretty much the next day. And I was there again. And in that particular instance, I was so dehydrated that I was having heart palpitations, and I was in the hospital again. And and so from there on, essentially between recovering and having and quarantining, and then now I'm what they call a long haul survivor. I'm still suffering from effects from COVID. That pretty much dominated my entire year last year.
I can imagine. Yes, being, and I mean, the fear of it alone, I'm sure, is horrific. And like you said, you took a simple flight, so the uncertainty as to how you were affected by, getting COVID-19 is still a mystery. But it sounds like it was really, a really horrific process, just even knowing that you hadn't now been affected with COVID-19
Yes, it was
and the
very.
devastation to your family. So understanding that you were on a flight, going back and forth. So the other members of your family were also affected with COVID-19 as well.
They were, and happily, nobody had it near as badly as I did.
Mhm.
My two nieces, they had, let's say, they felt like they had a cold one day. The next day they had a fever. The next day their stomach hurt. So from very light things that they were feeling, that's as far as it went with them. My brother-in-law and my husband definitely had it worse than the girls, but even still, they didn't need to be hospitalized. And to tell you the truth, when I was in the hospital, I was consumed with worry about them having as bad of a case as I was having, and the fact that they weren't there and they were okay, and they were kind of, they were surviving, and they were okay day to day.
Mhm.
It gave me so much peace of mind. I was just so glad that they were okay, because I was so concerned. And of course, there's part of you that thinks, did I give it to them? Did I get it at work up in New York? And did I spread it to them? Is it all my fault? You go through all of these kind of,
The emotional
mental,
part
right? Just
of
like,
having COVID.
and so, but happily, everybody's fine. Nobody is having, again, a long haul kind of symptoms like I am now. So
And that's, part of COVID. It is my understanding too. Yes, it's an emotional challenge at this point because there's still so much unknown about it, where it actually came from. No one really is certain about that. Even though the vaccine is now being made available, there's still so much out there. The mystery, as you said, the emotional, the turmoil part that you endured. The body reacts to it differently from everybody, goes through different phases of this COVID-19. Like you said, you seem to have had the worst part of it, whereas your family members, they had it, but it wasn't quite horrific on them as it was. And so here now you're in the hospital worried about them. And of course, they're home worrying about you.
right,
So the
right.
family now has endured this emotional imbalance here because of COVID. And we're understanding that yes, COVID does cause this because it's unknown.
Right.
When it first hit, everybody was like, okay, maybe flu-like. But now that look at how many lives have now been destroyed, how many lives, we've lost so many. And every day those numbers are constantly going higher and higher, even though there's a vaccine available now. So, we understand that, yes, there's emotional. Talk to us about the physical fatigue that you experience as well.
Well, that was the main symptom. Was I just felt like I couldn't move, and that was a long haul symptom after, when I was recovering, was I couldn't move. I would get up and I would try to get myself something to eat, or try to clean up around the room, or clean up around my brother-in-law's home, and I really just couldn't stay up for more than 15 minutes. And I'm like, what is this? I mean, I've lived in New York City for almost 30 years. And the work I do up there is I'm a tour guide, right? I take people around the city and I show them the different sites and attractions. I walk on average 8 miles a day, and I couldn't do anything on my feet for 15 minutes. And that's really frightening for somebody who's just used to being up and at 'em and walking around, to you can't even do anything,
So
for
there,
any length of time. It was very scary.
I can imagine. So yes, COVID does have those effects on the body as well, where it has now not only limited you emotionally because you're still bouncing all over, because you have it, you're worried about your family, and now here comes, I'm not able to get up and move around. So
Right.
life became even more challenging for you because of the fact now you're seeing other side effects. I understand that it also causes a lot of nauseousness as well, loss of appetite. Did you experience any of that?
So believe it or not, so I was I think I was tested positive March the 18th. To this day, I have no sense of taste or smell. It's all gone.
Oh,
So still don't have that. And how many months later is that? So I still have a loss of taste and smell. My lymph nodes and my neck, even all these months later, are still enlarged. I go to doctors a lot. I've actually got a doctor appointment tomorrow, and I've had lots of blood work done. And a lot of my, those levels that they test for
mhm.
different things, a lot of them are out of range. So I'm constantly going to the doctor to get that checked and double checked on what that could mean. And some of the stranger things was I'd have all these strange tingling sensations around my body, and they really were freaky. I mean, I literally felt like maybe a roach was crawling across my leg. That's kind of what the feeling was. And it turns out, and me in particular, it's really hurt my nerves, my nerve endings in my nervous system. And so I've had to kind of get used to that. So for a long while, I got very, very worried about my health. And I'm 51 years old. I'm somebody that, just like any 51-year-old, I've suffered hardship in my life in different capacities, but never health. That was something I'd
Mhm.
never faced, any kind of health trial. So to go from never facing anything like that to now, or especially when I was COVID positive, and then the months after, I became a paranoid wreck. Like, what is happening? What's all these sensations with my body? And I was very nervous, just because I just didn't know what was going on. You just kind of feel like that loss of control. And
Mhm.
again, having never faced any health issues was something I had to get used to.
Amazing. I can only, just imagine, I guess so, because like you said, you've always been healthy. And being a tour guide in New York, I've lived in New York, so I know those blocks
Yeah,
are very long,
yeah,
especially downtown in Manhattan. Yes.
yeah.
You've been physically fit, most of your life. And so now here comes this. This is like the tornado in your life now because it's completely turned life upside down for you. But you have found that one thing, and that is great. That's the faith that you had, knowing that this too shall pass, even though
Right.
it was horrific. You fought this fight, and you were willing to continue to fight this fight for not only yourself but your family. But we're going to stop right here just for a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back with Miss Christine Stanton. Stay right there at a place called Through on WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network, and we'll continue talking about the effects of COVID-19. Stay tuned.
Swing into Their Dreams Foundation presents the golf tournament of the year, raising scholarships for aspiring National Golf Club in Milton, Georgia. The inaugural HBCU Swing into Their Dreams Charity Golf Tournament. Registration and gourmet continental breakfast begins at 8 a.m. and shotgun at 10 a.m. Award reception follows. Come enjoy a day of jazz, mimosa, cigars, cash bar, silent auction, and more. For more information, contact 770-686-71 Their Dreams. Don't miss it.
Welcome back to a place called Through. We welcome you back to continue talking to Miss Christina Stratton today, who is blessed to be a survivor of COVID-19. Even though COVID-19 has affected her, not only her, but just family members as well. And as we all know, COVID-19 is a very serious matter. It is affecting us all over the world. It's a global pandemic, but not everybody is so fortunate to have survived it. And our hearts go out to the family members who have lost people because of COVID. But we want to continue talking to Ms. Stratton today about her faith, how faith walked in the door when COVID-19 was trying to take her out. Ms. Stratton, if you would continue to talk to us about now that you've been diagnosed with it, you've been treated in the hospital, and still having some issues, but at this point, your faith has now begun to rise above. You've been called to rise, and you're rising above COVID-19. So talk to us about now your strength and this increase in your faith in spite of COVID-19.
Well, to backtrack a little bit about where I was spiritually before COVID, my husband and I are very active in our church. My husband actually is, let's say, the accountant of our church, and we have a close relationship with Christ. I mean, Christ is kind of every part of our life. So when I entered into this time of being physically so ill, and such a scary time, especially, gotta understand, in March, there's still so much not known about the virus now. There was so little known about the virus in March. It was so frightening. But I remember the second time that I was hospitalized, and I had seen a doctor in the hospital, and I basically put him on the spot, and I said, can you tell me what my odds are of beating this? And he looked at me and he said, you've got a 50-50 chance of survival. And even though I asked him to be honest with me, I really wasn't expecting that response. And I remember saying something like, why? And he told me that he thinks a couple things about my constitution, that might have been weaker. I had a weaker immune system. He was going through all but I kind of blocked him out at one point. I was like, I don't know if I can handle this information.
You asked, but you really didn't want to know.
I know, exactly. So I remember when he left, I was so upset, and I picked up the phone to call my husband, and I said, so what, Christina, what are you going to do? Tell him the doctor just gave you a 50% chance of survival? I don't want to tell him that. And I remember turning on the TV just to distract me from that information. And the TV, I turned the channels, and it was all about COVID deaths. And I was like, I can't watch this. So I turned off the TV. I picked up my computer, looked on Facebook, again, anything to distract me. Facebook was doing the same thing. Everybody was sharing and resharing articles about deaths and this virus. And so I had to turn that off, and I shut my computer. And I looked at my phone, and I thought about maybe calling a friend. And I was like, I can't carry on a conversation because I have no lung capacity in which to do that. So I put that down. So I had no more media. I had no more devices. It was just me. And of course, as you know, in the hospital, people can't visit you because of COVID. So it was just me and God. And I said, okay, it's me and you, God. And now it's about now when I need to talk to you. And I started praying and say, Lord, if this is the end of the road for me, just let me accept. And I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be bitter. You kind of go through the mental Rolodex of, do I need to forgive anybody? Do I need to ask anybody's forgiveness? Like I want to finish this well, if this is the end of the road. And I just remember feeling that, even though here I'm in the hospital, I gotta understand, I'm in a hospital in Tampa. I don't know Tampa. I'm only there because of my nieces. I'm in a completely unfamiliar environment. I'm all alone. My husband is 45 minutes away from me. Nobody can visit me. And but you know what? I wasn't alone. And I knew that. I was not alone.
And that's the promise of God. He said he would never leave you, nor would he forsake you. But when sometimes situations happen, we forget that, because situations are so horrific. And a lot of times we get more focused on the situation or the circumstances, and we forget that one thing that he said. He gave us his word that I would never leave you, nor would I forsake you.
And I definitely felt the Holy Spirit there. I was not alone. He was with me. And I remember thinking, this is good. This is where I need to be. I want my family at home. I want to be here alone. I don't need any more devices for the time that I'm here. This is just between me and God, where I'm preparing my heart for God to potentially receive me. I just want to finish this well, and that's what I'm going to be geared to doing right now. And I'm like, Lord, if you keep me on this earth, I just want to do your will. I just want to whether the end of my road is now, or next week, or next month, or next year, I just want you, Lord. And I tell you, I can't imagine having faced that kind of fearful situation without Jesus. I can't imagine it. I don't want to imagine it, and I don't want it for anybody, because it's a tough place to be, and I can't imagine the terror without Jesus.
And that is something, that, to be considered about and be concerned, really, because there's so many people that's battling COVID that don't know the Lord. They don't know, and they're in a real fight for survival, for life, and not knowing the Lord, and then you've got people that don't believe, the non-believers. And so those are the people, that we pray most so that hopefully that they will come to know the Lord as you have known him, that you do know him, and your faith was increased because you are a believer, and you knew that no matter what, God was still there with you. And he kept you there to let you know that, yes, I am still with you. And as the word of God said, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. And so even though the pasture looked dark and bleak to you, it was still yet prepared and green for you to move on. And we're so thankful for that.
Yes. I learned a lot about the power of prayer with this hardship, because again, in March, when this virus there was nothing known. And when I was at the hospital, I realized they don't really have anything to fight this with. They were giving me Tylenol. I'm like, I take Tylenol when I have a headache. This man just told me that I have a 50% chance of survival. I'm getting Tylenol. And it was just one of those kind of realizations that I need prayer. And I remember spending about 3 hours writing everybody I knew and asking them to pray for me. And I really do believe I'm still on this earth because of those prayers that were lifted up on my behalf.
So let me just go back a minute, because you said they were giving you Tylenol. So what was the treatment like? I mean, that's how they were treating it, just with Tylenol?
They were trying to treat my low blood pressure, and they were monitoring that. They did know that COVID causes blood clots, and they were giving me shots for blood clots and blood thinners and things like that. I was given hydroxychloroquine, which I have to say, and this is not a political statement, it did not work for me. So I was given that drug that actually resulted in a rash right off the bat. And not only that, but they had to clear that out of my system to give me anything else. So it did not work for me. But Tylenol was kind of it, to tell you the truth. But I did like being there because I got constant IVs. And I was so dehydrated, and IVs makes you feel better. So I definitely felt like I could fight it much better in the hospital than at home, even though there wasn't a ton that they could do for me.
And so before we wrap up, because it looks like we are running out of time here, let's talk to you. Let's bring this in now about your faith, your journey, your place called through. And your place called through is COVID-19, but it's a journey. It's a journey of faith. So bring us in, if you will, with your journey now that you've taken this walk in COVID, and now that you're out of COVID. Let's talk about that.
So now, all these months later, I'm still processing. I'm still, it was such an intense year for everybody. But I want to tell you, last week I talked to a friend of mine that I haven't talked to her since March. I had told her that, and many people, to please pray for me. I have COVID. So I am the missions director at my church. I have been to South Africa for the last 10 years. I brought groups to an orphanage in South Africa specifically. This particular girl who I'd asked to pray, actually, God bless her, she's a long-term missionary now at this orphanage in South Africa. And she had gone on one of the mission trips with me, and I had introduced her to this orphanage. She called me from the orphanage, and she was in the quarter with all of the teenage girls. So this is a very poor, sad orphanage in South Africa. She had all the girls pray for me and sing Amazing Grace to me in South Africa while I was in the hospital. And that meant so much to me. But, last week I said, Trisha, I don't think I ever properly thanked you for roping the girls in and praying for me. And I want to thank you for that. And she said, Christina, when we got off that FaceTime call with you, you did look like you were dying. And the girls were very upset and they were crying. And they said, Miss Trisha, do you think Christina is going to live? And she says, I didn't want to tell them that maybe not. I said, let's commit her to Christ. Let's commit her body to Christ. Let's commit her to God. And that all we can do is pray. And she says, and we prayed and we prayed and we prayed because you really did look bad when we FaceTimed you. And, it's all these months later and I never really heard that story. And so in retrospect, I think I'm so blessed. How blessed am I? What a gift, what a wonderful gift. And I'm my heart is full, and it's only God that can make those kind of connections. And that I have people around the world who love me and who pray for me. And that's only because of Christ. I survived, because Christ was with me. And even if it was my time to go, I would have gone with the Holy Spirit comforting me. And I just, I can't imagine going through COVID or anything else in life without Christ, anything else. And I won't ever.
And now that's the thing. Our faith has to take us through no matter what we go through, be it COVID, whatever life challenge is, or the journey or our walk. We have to stay strong in our faith. Looks like we done ran out of time on you, Miss Christina, but we thank you for being so willing to share your story about surviving COVID-19 and what you and your family have endured. But most of all, we hope that you continue to be healed and be blessed in the Lord, and that your faith will continue to increase so that you can now go out and empower, encourage, and inspire others through your testimony and your story provided to us today at A Place Called Through. We certainly, again, wish you the very best. And thank you for being my guest today at A Place Called Through. I am the host, Patricia Wade Goings, and we do broadcast from WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network. And if you'd like to be a guest, you may do so by reaching me at pgoings at pgoingswp@gmail.com or in area code of 843-608-9744. You can also follow us at WYTV7.org and also on Facebook at A Place Called Through at Willpower, The Call to Rise Above. I am the author of that book, Willpower, The Call to Rise Above, and that book is now available on Amazon and at Barnes & Nobles. I invite you to be our guest again at A Place Called Through. And Miss Christina, if you have any information, how people can contact you for any information or program that you're working on, please share that with us. We got about 2 minutes for you to do that.
I have written this book called Faith in the Face of COVID-19. And it's just about my journey with COVID and my journey with Christ. And I wrote it because I wanted it to be a blessing and because I realized yet again the power of prayer and how important it is to face life, anything in life with Christ. So if anybody's interested in that book, it's just $10. It's on Amazon or actually Barnes & Nobles and a lot of things like that. Anyway, Faith in the Face of COVID-19. So yeah, I just I appreciate the fact that you let me share my testimony, and I love sharing my testimony. So thank you.
We thank you so very much. And again, you heard it here at A Place Called Through on WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network. COVID-19, its effects, the future, and faith. God bless you.